Yeah. Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm your host, Karthik Verma, and welcome back to another episode of the Besides Noida Weekly podcast. Today's episode is indeed a very special one because we will be diving into a complex and a very rapidly evolving field of cybersecurity, which is cloud security. Today's guest is Mr. Shashank Dubey, a senior cloud security researcher whose expertise spans AWS, Kubernetes, Azure, and GCP. Shashank has shared his knowledge at top conferences like OWASP, Null Chapters, and DefCON, and has a knack of turning complex security issues into actionable insights through his workshops, talks, and blogs. Shashank is a trusted voice in cloud security, and we're looking forward to tapping into his experience and learning about the latest trends, and best practices in the field. So, sir, first of all, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate you taking out time for us. And I'll start by asking you, how are you doing, sir? How's your day going?
All good, and thanks Karthik for this brief introduction. And I would like to do my thanks to the entire BSides Noida team. You guys are doing great, like within a span of very few months, I believe.
Yeah,
You guys are doing great. So yeah, and also I'm doing good.
thank you so much, sir. The pleasure is all ours, as I said. So, sir, before we start the podcast,
hmm
our majority of our viewers
hmm
are freshers, are our beginners or students, I should say, that have little to no idea about security or cloud security, if I be more specific. So I
Okay.
would love to ask you, because you're an expert in this field, if you could describe what is cloud security to a layman and why has it become increasingly important in
hmm
today's landscape of security, sir.
Okay. So before starting this, let's not directly jump to cloud security. We
Sure.
need to first understand what exactly is cloud, right? So cloud is nothing, just using someone else's computer, right? In simple layman terms. So just assume that there is a computer which is or servers which is placed somewhere on a geographical location. You are accessing it over the internet, right?
Okay.
Now, for accessing it, you require certain things. The very first thing is which particular protocol. Protocol basically set of rules, how you are using it. So it could be from a web application interface, from a mobile application, or maybe from a you can say like computer software. So you should be having a client interaction where you are just accessing that particular computer. Now, if you are accessing these all things at a scale, larger scale, so you yourself as an individual cannot set up everything and cannot ensure the connectivity always, right? So for that, there are big players like cloud service providers, right? Like Amazon, Azure, Google, Alibaba, VMware. A lot of big names are here. So they provide the entire infrastructure. They have their geographical locations. We generally call it as data centers, right? And they provide their interfaces. That is cloud service provider interface. That is AWS console or Azure console or dashboard. Sometimes people call it. So using that, you connect to the cloud, right? Basically, the someone else computer or server where you do a lot of steps. Whatever the technology you have heard of, it could be from networking, it could be from databases, servers, any particular technology like AI, machine learning, IoT, everything you can do inside that cloud because ultimately it is an infrastructure.
All right.
Now, the way you are accessing it, right, and how these machines are communicating to each other, right, how these things are communicating, how these things are placed. So, as a cloud security person, you should be aware of these all things. Then, how you are accessing it, how are the things that plays an important role. So it could be something like, let's suppose you have to access it via your mobile phone. Now you
Mm-hmm.
are accessing it with your browser also. So
Yeah.
that is some abnormal thing which should not be there. So similar kind of stuffs are there where you identify the different ways of accessing those services, the way they are accessing each other. You are trying to disrupt it, you are trying to change it. So there comes the role of a cloud security guy. So they plays around all these things, how you are accessing cloud, right? So this is all about cloud security.
All right. So, it is actually very interesting because I went through your profile, sir, and I realized that you initially started. I would like to tell our viewers first of all that sir, just like me, is an engineer, and he initially started his field, his career as a software engineer, sir, right? So from
Correct.
software engineer, how did you think, or how did you come into cloud security? I'm actually very curious, sir.
Okay, so it's a interesting story.
Yeah.
So my role was software engineer, but ultimately I'm working in cloud. So
Ah,
from
okay.
day one, I am into cloud, but there's a long story before it. I mean, to whomsoever I have met in past, or maybe these days, those who are working in cloud security, somehow they are accidentally into cloud security. Why?
Okay.
Because initially there is no field called cloud security.
Yeah.
There are fields like DevOps, cloud engineers, right? Cloud ops, some fascinating names. And then people used to do some stuffs over there like enabling encryption, just toggle it on, like drag and drop things.
Mm-hmm.
People generally enable multi-factor authentication. They use something called best practices in cloud. And in those days, people name it as cloud security.
Okay.
Yeah, and the years goes on, people started evolving, technology started evolving, and then organizations require that there is a need of someone who is proficient into cloud security. Why? Because configuration is not all about cloud security. Yes, that's a part, because ultimately whatever the uh, security risks occurs, they all occur just because of the cloud security misconfigurations, right? So then people realized that there is a need of it, and then they started hunting for this particular job roles. They have curated it. But when it comes to me, so during my college days, I was very much curious about. Uh, from the first year of my college, I did programming, a lot of programming, written 800,000 lines of code in C and C++,
Okay.
for creating a simple application that is called bakery billing system and something called income tax calculator. I still remember
Okay.
those projects. So those were interesting to me. Later on, I moved to IoT also. I
Okay.
did a lot of stuff like all of us we do in our college days. We create, remote controlled robots, line following robots, and all. So those are very important. And then in the third year, I got introduced to operating systems, and I started building my interest over there. I started learning Linux. I I'm very fond of like how things works. So
Mm-hmm.
let's suppose if you are writing a command like cd or ls. So what's happening in the background? I tried and started hunting it. I mastered those, not to a proficient level, but yes, to an acceptable level. I did all those, and then I was introduced to cybersecurity. I did a lot of cybersecurity initially. I used to do web security and network security. I did all of them, and those are very important. And then I landed my first job, that is as a software engineer.
Okay.
Now the story begins. On the day one of my first job, I was introduced to JavaScript,
Okay.
and I'm completely blown up. Like, what is this? I'm here for security stuffs. Now people ask me to learn about callback functions.
Yeah.
There are something called fetch or all other functions.
Mm-hmm.
So I was worried about my career from the day one. That where I am currently, I don't know anything about much about programming. I would say those 800 lines of code are just like if else and other switch case statements.
Mm-hmm.
So so that is why I was not confident about programming, and I was hired for React role, I would say.
Okay.
And then I told my manager that okay, I am not here for this stuff, and I am pretty much sure that I cannot perform well in this.
Okay.
So they agreed, they understood, and they switched my profile to security. But they told that since you are an intern, so we only provide the intern in the software engineer domain.
Mm-hmm.
So I said like I'm okay with it. I don't care about the profile as of now. I just wanted to learn and explore the security stuff. And then I was introduced to cloud. That okay, if you are here for security, we work in the cloud environment. So you have to learn cloud. So then I learned cloud. After that, I started building things over there. So why my profile was software engineer in cloud? Because I closely work with SRE. Those who don't know about SRE, it is like SRE engineers are basically site reliability engineers. So in cloud, they are responsible for keeping the infrastructure up, try evolving those, maintaining the cost effectiveness, right? So, and then I started closely working with them. So I explored a lot of cloud services, mostly in AWS. And later on, the security stuffs are around it. And that is how I landed up into security. Later on, I started doing my own research, started learning the blogs and all. That we will discuss in the latter part of the podcast. Yeah.
So that is the reason I wanted to ask you this question because
Yeah.
usually we freshers, right?
Mhm.
I just graduated from college. Most of the people who graduate, they are like, okay, if I want to get into the security field, I'm going to become a pen tester,
Yeah.
and they usually decide, okay, I'm going to get into network. People are like, I'm going to get into application security or IoT security. A few ones are SCADA, right? Now, out of nowhere, ekdam se it's been like, cloud security, and every other company is like, we need cloud security engineers, we need cloud security researchers. And that is the reason I actually wanted to ask you कि आप initially, like just after graduating, आप एकदम से आपका मन था कि नहीं मेरे को cloud में ही जाना है, yeah, it was like a happy accident कि you entered, and that's exactly what you told me, and I'm actually happy कि sir, I asked this question. The next question, so you said something about
Mhm.
how cloud security has evolved over the years, and that is the perfect segue to my next question. So
Mhm.
earlier, what used to happen was that, like in a company, security obviously was never given so much importance. Like if you think about it, in earlier days, right, at
Yeah.
least, and there was like only one cybersecurity individual,
Mhm.
and he was responsible for setting up firewalls, IDS,
Mhm.
IPS servers, and making sure okay, our network is secure. He was also responsible for testing out web applications. They were also responsible to some extent, okay, take care of the cloud, right, of our cloud resources. So, sir, according to you, nowadays companies, they feel like, okay, for network we need a particular skilled individual, for cloud we need another set of skills. So do you feel that that is like the correct way the organizations are carrying out their operations, and if yes, sir, why do you think so?
Okay. So yes, there is a requirement of a specialist in each and every case. Why? Because if you are running a small organization, that is okay. You can maintain, like if you have only few nodes. So let's suppose if you are working in an office where there is a sitting place of, let's suppose, 10 people,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a single product,
Yeah.
then you need one or two security professionals. They can manage everything starting from your network, application, and all other basic stuff. But when you broaden your infrastructure, when you broaden your work, your product, and everything, at every particular single point of time, you will face this issue that you need an expert to tackle with the problems, the real-time challenges that you are going to face.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question, it is very much required to have a specialist for each and every security specific job role. It could be network, it could be cloud. Even I have seen people in organizations, they have separate professional for AWS, separate for Azure and GCP,
Okay.
separate for Kubernetes itself. So those who are working very closely in security, one guy cannot do it. So let's suppose if you are talking about my particular profile.
Yeah.
So I'm currently dedicating myself into cloud security. So honestly, if I'll say, so my strongest cloud part is AWS and
Okay.
more of Kubernetes. If you ask me about the deeper concepts of GCP, I would fail. But my organization require that there must be the security checklist or maybe the other steps, which is my core, working of my product of my current organization. So they require someone who is very much expert in GCP, right? Then only they can dig deeper into it and then they can bring up a lot of things. I can also do that, but I need to do a better research on it, more
Mm.
research, more efforts on it. But if there is someone who knows all those things, that will help the organization to grow very significantly. So yes, again, answer to your question, it is very much required to have the specialists and experts for each and every particular domain.
Okay, so, and so, like, as you said that when you started your career in cloud
Hmm.
security specifically in your first organization, I'm assuming you had compared to today, of course, you had little to no knowledge of cloud. I'm assuming, right? You did not
Yeah.
have practical experience, right? So,
Hmm.
what were some of the challenges or mistakes that you encountered during your learning process,
Hmm.
and like how did you overcome them, and what advice would you have for the younger people out there?
So again, I would say when I jumped into my first job, I was completely blank about cloud. I
Okay.
only know that how to spin up the EC2 instances and Azure VMs because those days I was curious about how CTFs are going on, and
Acha.
I wanted to host. In fact, I have hosted one or two CTFs in college days.
Okay.
So how to make this server available for everyone? So that is why I have explored DigitalOcean, explored AWS EC2, Lightshell, and Azure VMs.
Okay. Just a minute. We might have a technical glitch right now, but that's okay. We'll just be back. Let's start now. All right. Hopefully, we guys are back. So sorry for the technical glitch. I'm sure कि कोई sir important बात बोल रहे थे and वो हो गया बीच में disturb. But no worries, sir. I'll for the audience, I'll ask you the question again. So my question was that when you started your journey, obviously, just like any other beginner, you must have faced a lot of challenges or have done many mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So, can you please share some of the challenges or mistakes you encountered during your learning process so other students can avoid making the same errors on
Mhm.
their own journey?
Okay. So the common mistake that everyone does is once you started learning cloud, you started exploring services. You ended up exploring, let's suppose, 5 to 10 services. Now
Mhm.
you become very confident that, okay, now I'm the master of cloud. And
Okay.
that is the biggest mistake you do because there are more than 200 services on AWS, I believe, if I'm not wrong. Uh, and you can master them all, right? So what happened with me, I tried exploring because I was closely working with SRE team those days. So I explore a lot of services in AWS, right? So more than 20, 25, 30 services I explored.
All right.
Now I think that I have explored all those services. Now I'm very much confident. Then what happened when I come to, let's suppose, LinkedIn or somewhere, or maybe the blog post or somewhere, and when I see people posting about their real life challenges, real time challenges regarding any issues, so there I become like someone who is not having even a basic knowledge about how this thing will work. So let's take an example. So those days there was a podcast I was listening to. So not postcard. It is like someone is giving some uh, telling some story on YouTube. So
All right.
that was from one of the biggest streaming platform, and they were discussing about how they are able to accommodate those many viewers, like viewers in crores, right? 1 million, 10 million, 20 million viewers. So when there is an IPL match going on,
Yeah.
and if there is a final match going on, and that is a real time situation where let's suppose if one wicket went, so a lot of people started gradually coming down. The viewers started losing their hope that okay, now India will lose this match. They will shut down all their other streaming platforms and they switch to YouTube or social media platforms. That is the usual human behavior, right? Or user behavior. Now
Mhm.
how that particular platform is suddenly coming from this particular point to this one, like let's suppose from 20 million to 2 million,
Mhm.
and at the same time they need to worry about their cost because on cloud you pay for what you use. So let's suppose if you'll keep your infrastructure up, let's suppose I am hosting something on 500 gigabits of RAM, let's suppose, right? But usually I don't need for that streaming for 2 million people. Maybe I
Mhm.
need it for 200 million people, but
Okay.
still I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
Now they were talking about how they gradually shift from downscaling, and then later on they are doing the upscaling of the environment. So that is technically in cloud that is called auto scaling. So how they are managing it on that particular level of users or the traffic. So then I learned, and then I identified that okay, I have zero knowledge about it,
Mm.
right? So that is the one mistake which I did. You can call it as overconfident or something, but yes, that happened actually, and that is a very common disease. I would say disease in cybersecurity professionals. That is very common.
So like as you said, you
Yeah.
just like you believe even
Yeah.
today, students when they think about okay, I want to be a cloud security professional, cloud security
Hmm.
researcher, they usually go on the net. They let's assume if I am that student
Hmm.
and I decide okay, I want to pursue, I want to learn about AWS, right?
Hmm.
So what usually students do, they'll streamline. Okay, what are the most common used services on AWS?
Hmm.
They'll try to master. Okay, let's say 10 of those, and then
Yeah.
after mastering those they'll feel okay, now I know everything about the
Correct.
field, and when they actually enter into the field and try to tackle real world problems,
Hmm.
that is where they actually realize oh, I don't know actually anything, right?
Right.
So according to you, what is like like what is the solution for this? How does one become
Hmm.
better and actually becomes capable of tackling these real world problems?
Okay, since I named it as a disease, so
Yeah.
it is a curable disease, and there is a medicine for it. So the antibiotic for this one is learn, learn, and learn.
Okay.
So start hunting for new things. Start looking out how big guys are doing it.
Okay.
If I say big guys, like big organizations are doing it. So let's suppose if you are working on a streaming platform, see how Netflix is doing it, how Hotstar is doing it, right? If you're working on any different product, right? So let's suppose payment gateway industry. Now think of it how they are like big players like PhonePe or Paytm, usually those days, Razorpay, how they are doing it. In
Hmm.
fact, most of them publish their white papers. In fact, most of them have released their entire infrastructure publicly that this is how our infrastructure looks like. And most of them, like usually on weekly or monthly basis, they release some notes or blogs that you can read and understand like how this entire infrastructure is working. So just take that medicine in
Okay.
appropriate amount. I would not say that learn blogs and blogs and blogs, but
Yeah.
yes, to an appropriate amount, you should take it. And that is uh, only you can overcome that
Okay, sir.
overconfident issue.
Got it, sir. Also,
Yeah.
so like before our every podcast, right? We
Mhm.
roll out Google Forms in which we
Okay.
ask our viewers if you
Mm.
have. Obviously, we tell our viewers 1 week before that, okay, that the next guest is going to be this person, okay. So
Mhm.
we did the same this week as well, and we asked our viewers, okay, are there any question that you want to ask? Now, before we even roll out that form, right, there are a few questions that we know are going to come up. So I'm going to ask one of them right now, and I
Okay.
think you might have guessed it. It is regarding the certifications, right? It has to.
Okay.
The question has to be like if we are talking about cybersecurity.
Hmm.
So if we don't talk about certification, ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता. So I have to ask you this question, and I'm actually very curious as well,
Hmm.
because we know about that there are a few certifications out there. If you want to be, if you get in, want to get into application security, okay, there are these certifications. If you want to get into network, there is this OSCP that that is the holy grail, that is the HR
Yeah.
filter, what as people say, right? So in cloud security, according to you, is there any
Hmm.
particular certification that you would recommend a beginner to try and get, to at least if if he or she is not able to gain experience from working in a company, at
Hmm.
least he or she can do that particular certification so they can learn enough, so that at least they can just get started in the field. Do you have any recommendations for that?
Okay. So I would like to explain few examples that will be easy for the viewers to understand.
Sure.
So if I'll talk about myself, getting my first job, I have zero certifications. Getting my second job, I have zero certifications. In fact, I would have zero certifications getting my third job, but there is a requirement from client side that okay, we
Acha.
require a guy who have this certification. So then my organization at that time they asked me to complete one certification, and I did it
Mhm.
within a span of 6 days. I just went through few questions and all what are going to be asked in the certification, and I cracked that. That is AWS Solution Architect Associate
Okay.
certification.
Okay.
So that is again because that is a client's requirement,
Mhm.
right? So this is the answer to your question that if you are very much confident and you just wanted a job, certification is not required.
Okay.
But if it is, but it is required in such cases where the filter criteria is the certification. Now, let's understand it in simple terms. Now, Shashank and Karthik both works for an organization A. Now, Karthik knows the work of Shashank. Shashank knows the work of Karthik. How well they are in, or maybe you are, and maybe I am in my particular domain.
Yeah.
Now, Karthik went to a company B. Shashank wanted to shift to company B also. Now Shashank talked to Karthik. Hey Karthik, I want to come to your company for this particular job opening, which I have just seen on your website. Now I wanted to apply for it. Now Karthik knows that Shashank is very good at it. That job description still says that okay, I need OSCP certification for this. For
Mhm.
time being, let's assume that. But Shashank does not have that certification. But Karthik knows that Shashank is very good at it for web application and network security. If Karthik is confident, he will forward his profile.
Mhm.
Here, there is no requirement of certification. But let's suppose Shashank don't know about any organization company C. And he is fighting for getting his resume shortlisted. He has to fight with other candidates where the filter criteria is OSCP certification. Now other candidates are fulfilling it, right? So what you will do? You need the certification over there.
Yeah.
Another simple example is, let's suppose you are going to a class. Let's suppose standard 8 of your school. There, what you are looking for? You are looking for the best guy. How will you identify the best guy? The simplest criteria is you will look for the previous year report card.
Yeah.
And you will bring the topper from there, right? That is the simplest criteria. This is certification is just a criteria to filter out those candidates efficiently because the job market is very huge. So that is why that is one of the filter criteria. But I strongly, I would say, I'm not making any controversies. I don't believe in certifications until and unless if I'm confident about my work.
Okay.
Yeah.
For people and for students out there who are trying to, get, as you said, you gave an example of a case C in which, you were trying to get into a company C in which you were competing against thousands of applications, for example, right? And if you actually want to stand out and are trying to get into cloud security, is there one or two certifications in according to you that you would recommend a person to get just to, get started in their career?
If possible, if you can afford it,
Yeah.
go for it. Don't fight it with your parents that I need money for doing this certification.
Yeah.
So that is the bad thing about this certification. People think that that is a gateway to the job, but actually that is not true.
All right.
If you have a good communication skills, if you have good connections, if you know how to make connections, and if you have a skill, then there is no need of certification. But still, if you want to do, if you can afford it for cloud, I would recommend go for solution architect. It is very good certification.
All right.
If you want to do it.
Okay.
Not just particularly certification, because those are MCQ questions.
Okay.
And MCQ questions is, I believe, not a good criteria to, examine someone's skill. Right? It's just a mistake of one word and you will end up marking the wrong option.
Yeah.
Right. So just learn the concepts which are basically asked in the solution architect exam. So that is mostly focused on highly scalable, highly reliable, highly available environments. So that will open the gateway for cloud, not particularly for security, but for cloud. Security is one step ahead of that. That is AWS, I believe, security specialty program. Even AWS recommend that you should do the solution architect and SysOps administrator. Then you jump to this one.
Okay.
But I know people, they have completed this certification and they don't have any. I'm just not making it controversial, but yes, I'm being frank and honest. They don't know anything about this cloud security, but still they have the certification.
Okay.
I don't know how they managed to do it, but yes, there are cartels who are working around it.
All right, sir.
And you, I, and everyone who is in cybersecurity domain, they know about the Telegram groups.
Yeah.
They know about the online things that give me $50, get the voucher, get your work done, open it in VM and all. So yes, that is why certification are always controversial.
Okay. So according to you, and even I'm confused a lot of the times. So there are various, as you said, cloud service providers, right? There is AWS, there is Azure, and there is Google as well. I'm going to ask you a controversial question now. First, I won't ask you this, sir. I'll ask you. It's okay. So according to you, sir, which do you have one favorite, and if so, why, sir?
AWS is my favorite. It is way simpler than others.
Okay.
Microsoft products are literally made for the technically smart people.
Okay.
So if you use Excel, I'm giving you example of Excel, Microsoft Excel. And if you want to make certain changes to rows and columns, you will feel difficulties.
Yeah.
Like shortcuts are way too complex. When you go to the same thing in the Google Sheets, it's just 1 minute task. Just drag and drops and your things will get done. So Microsoft products are a little bit complex and they need to make it complex because they target the enterprise. And enterprise, like big organizations, are not simpler. Their architecture is completely different than your home architecture or small organization architecture. And AWS is targeting everyone. whether you are a big organization, whether you are a small organization.
Okay.
So that is why I recommend AWS. Now let's come to other parts like why Azure, why GCP.
Yeah.
Now, if you are working on a Android mobile application, let's suppose my organization is working on Android mobile application. They need to store some of their databases, NoSQL databases or other databases. They have flexible option to connect with Firebase, right? Why the hell he is going with the AWS provided storage solutions? He will not, because their need is being fulfilled from the availability point of view, easiness point of view, from the cost effectiveness point of view. Their work is done with the Firebase.
Yeah.
That is why they are using it. And later on, they realize that they need to spin up a server, and they have a server already. They have a database already on GCP, that is Google Cloud. There is service Firebase. So they will simply spin up the instance in GCP, and gradually they will start using GCP. This is one way. Another way is my organization is using AD. I have 2,000 users.
Yeah.
And Azure is providing me a flexibility to just migrate your entire on-prem AD to Azure AD. A great synchronization, because both are the Microsoft products. They
Yeah.
know their APIs. They have
Mhm.
built it by keeping this particular thing in center, that my users mostly on Active Directory, and I have to provide all the services by keeping Active Directory in the center. So what I'll do, my organization will choose Azure. I'll simply migrate all my users online now. I am now an Azure AD guy. Now Azure AD has a very good simple integration with other Azure products that we call it as services,
Mhm.
right? Like Teams, right? I want to do any stuff and I want to get an alert on Teams. Why would I go to AWS or GCP?
Makes
Because
sense.
I'm getting a convenient solution over there, and that
Yeah.
is even a cheaper solution,
Yeah.
right? So if I need to deliver something from my house and to the next available door, I mean to next available house in my colony, that will be a cheaper solution rather than uh, parcel it to a different house which is in a different city.
Mhm.
So I'll always choose the convenient option, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm a simple guy. Let's make it controversial. I'm a simple guy. I don't own a business. I don't have a Android application. I don't work in AD environment. Where should
Mhm.
I go? The simplest way for an student to land into cloud is AWS,
All
from
right.
my point of view.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not promoting AWS. AWS is not going to give me any credits for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But yes, AWS is simple, straightforward, drag and drop, click and learn.
I think
Their
that is.
documentation are
Sorry.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, their documentation are good. It is widely available. For each and every problem, you will get a direct answer, which is not possible with other cloud service provider. I believe that is just because they are not enough mature.
I think, sir, that is also another reason that you during college curriculum,
Hmm.
when teachers or when curriculum decides to teach students about cloud security or cloud in general,
Hmm.
they usually start with AWS, because compared to the other two platforms, it comparatively for layman it is easier to just get started.
Hmm.
And I feel the same way. The reason I asked you your opinion on this was the second part of my question was, which you answered, if
Hmm.
I be honest, but I just have to ask you again, is consider me like a complete beginner, right? So we understand that, okay, organizations might decide or pick up on a solution provider depending upon their need. But
Correct.
if a beginner is trying to get a job, out of these three, you said you would recommend AWS, or if there is a company in mind. For example, let's assume, just a example, if there's a company A,
Hmm.
and if that particular person wants to get job in A and they are using Azure, so in that particular case, even if the person knows AWS, he would need to learn Azure to get a job over there. Am I right?
Correct.
All right.
You have no options.
Okay. And so if a person knows AWS, how easy or difficult it is comparatively to migrate to the other solution providers?
Okay. On the scale of 10, it is not too difficult. So let's suppose difficulty is highest difficulty is 10 and
Mm-hmm.
lowest difficulty, that is most easy way, is 1 on the scale of 1 to 10. And if you know AWS, so I would rate 6,
Okay.
6 or maybe 5,
Okay.
that it is that much difficult to understand.
All
because
right.
the architecture is slightly different. AWS is straightforward, and Azure is all about subscription based,
Mhm.
right? So for each and every way, you have to create a subscription inside that, a resource group, and then your resources. Where this is not a case with AWS, it's straightforward.
All right, makes sense, sir. So another thing that I wanted to ask you is the short supply of cloud security researchers these days. I touched on it earlier, and you also
Hmm.
said a few points on this. But I would like to, talk about it like a whole, have a proper conversation about it. Like cloud security professionals seems to be in short supply these days. I mean,
Hmm.
like there are comparatively less people in cloud security as
Hmm.
compared to pen testing or SOC, right? What
Okay.
do you think the reason is, and do you feel that the transition is happening and the change is occurring? What do you think about it, sir?
Okay. So again, let's understand with the help of example, because I believe examples are the
Yeah,
best way
perfect.
to explain anything.
Yes, sir.
So I am into college. Consider myself. I'm into college. I need a job in, let's suppose, web security. What I need to learn? First, basic of web development. Second, web security.
Yeah.
And I can get a job in web application security. Now, I need a job in Android or maybe app security, Android or iOS. I need to learn Android app development. I need to understand the security. I can get into it. When I wanted to be a network engineer,
Hmm.
what I need to do? I need to learn the networks first. I need to understand the misconfiguration in it, and I can land my job in network security,
Hmm.
right? Similarly with other security aspects. So it is just like a single hop or maybe two hops, right? And you can reach that destination. Now, reaching to cloud security is a bit difficult. What you
Okay.
need to learn? Web security, because cloud is mostly provided over the web.
Yeah.
Then what you need to understand? App security, for sure. Why? Because web application vulnerabilities will be there.
Yeah.
I think we talked about app and web.
Yeah.
Basically, both are same thing.
Yeah.
And then network security, because cloud network, if you are able to compromise one asset, you will be able to compromise other assets because they are connected, well connected over the network. So that is why you need to understand the network also. Along with that, you need to understand cloud entirely, how it works. And then you need to learn cloud security, misconfiguration, and then you will learn to cloud security. So that is why there is a short supply. Why? Because most of the candidates will get filtered out on the first one. They get the job, they get satisfied, they go into their comfort zone. Now they started enjoying their web stuffs, they started exploring their web stuffs, and they will grow in that particular field.
Hmm.
Those who left out, they will come to uh, the cloud thing. They start learning cloud. Most of them will go to the DevOps side, DevSecOps side. Few of them. Cloud security is a bit different. It is more of a research, offensive and defensive techniques. DevSecOps is a bit different thing.
All right.
They closely work with the DevOps guys.
Mm-hmm.
So then the rest of us will come to the cloud security. It is something like long days back. I don't remember what is the name of that movie, but there is a police. That actor is a police. They say like आधे इधर जाओ, बाकी जो बचे मेरे पीछे आओ.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I got it.
हाँ.
Ranjit.
Yes, so they will, half of them will go to the web, half of them will go to cloud. जो बच गए, they will come to cloud security.
Yeah, I
So
got
that
it.
is why you will feel a shortage of them.
Sir, I love your examples, by the way. Well, perfect answer, perfect. Yes, sir. So another thing for the aspiring cloud security researchers, you are the perfect example. So what does your typical day look like? So like you wake up, what is your typical day? People want to
You
know.
want to, okay,
Yes.
you want to learn from when I wake up.
Yeah.
So I usually wake up late
Okay.
because I work late night. So when I wake up, I cook my own food. I prepare my own lunch, go to office,
Yeah.
and start my day with a coffee.
Hmm.
Let's come to the technical part.
Yeah.
So I look my mails, I look my tickets, whichever has been assigned to me. I work on that, and most of the day goes into research.
Okay.
How that research look like? So whatever the evolving attacks, how those attacks are getting framed, I need to simulate those attacks. I need to create my own labs. I need to try that, okay, whatever the things that is mentioned in XYZ blog, is it true or not? How to examine it? So let's create a lab for it, right?
Mhm.
Let's suppose if someone is saying that, okay, if you have an SSRF vulnerability, you can compromise the cloud if it has XYZ things matching. So I need to simulate this. This is a basic example that every cloud security guy will talk to you. There are a lot more things apart from this.
Yeah.
So usually my day starts with it, and then I come back from office, started doing other stuffs, and I'll dedicate much of my time for community. I keep on looking for what all conferences are happening. I keep on applying papers and all. I deliver talks, workshops and all. Few of them get selected, few of them not. So I'm trying better day by day in terms of cloud security. And also I work on tools, a lot of tools, so which most probably I'll be releasing in coming days and
Okay.
make it open source. And
Okay.
you guys gonna love it.
Oh, I'm sure that we'll love it for sure. So it is crazy. Like with every answer, right? I have a perfect segue to my next question. You said,
Okay.
sir, that you work late at night, right? That
Yeah.
was my second question. Is like working as a cloud security researcher. Do you typically have long hours or work in shifts like people usually work in SOC, or is the role generally very flexible and comfortable? Or do you have to be available like not 24/7, but you have to be available majority of your time?
So I would say if you have uh, created a lot of stuffs around you,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a quite occupied person.
Okay.
Along with the job, I do a lot other stuffs. So that is why for me I'm a bit occupied.
Okay.
But when you compare with SOC guys, they are insane guys. SOC is like 24 into 7, 365.
Okay.
So they work in shifts, which eventually with us, we are good on that part. We just need to work on our shifts. We work only for like 8 to 9 hours, and then we get our work done and we come to the next day and we'll carry on whatever we have left the last day. But SOC is a hectic job.
I know, sir.
You
100%.
need to be aware. And why we people are very much not worried about our steps, because SOC guys are doing it. If some intrusion is happening, SOC guys are there to help us that, okay, your cloud has been compromised or maybe it will be compromised. We
Yeah.
have stopped it. So those guys are there to help us. That is why we guys are like sleeping
Acha, okay.
peacefully.
Got it, sir. So, from your experience, I'm sure you must have encountered maybe a security incident that
Hmm.
was really very interesting, which you might not have experienced before. So, what approach did you take to to address and probably solve it? Did you have any experiences like that?
Mm, there are two. One is a false positive.
Acha.
So what happened when I was working in my first organization? So I have been deployed on. It has been more than 2 or 3 months. I have been deployed to take care of few of the security things, and we have one vendor which
Mhm.
manages our physical systems. So they have one agent in our system, and they keep on running it. So for some reason, there is an update from Ubuntu. Those days we are using Ubuntu. So there is an update from Ubuntu, and their agent stopped working. Now those vendors, they have some representatives. They started calling all of our employees and asked to redeploy the or re-download the agent, the newer version of agent, and then running into it. So and those days we are making use of Amazon workspaces.
Okay.
So because those were COVID times and we need to work virtually, so our working computers are in AWS workspaces. So that is a desktop as a service kind of thing, where you have your machine and inside that all of your tools, and you require a physical machine to connect to that. Once they installed uh, their agent, Amazon workspaces stopped working.
Acha.
So people started reporting me because I am the first point of contact for them. I
Mm-hmm.
started getting, and then I asked like, what you did. So 2 or 3 of them have the same issue that they have installed one agent. Someone called them and then told that they are from that XYZ company and there is something not working. That's why you have to download this application.
Mm-hmm.
And they have installed it. Then I got panics. Like why it happened. Looks like there is a big attack is going to happen against my organization.
Yeah.
I start throwing messages on Teams that, okay, please do not install anything. It could be a cyber attack,
Yeah.
sophisticated cyber attack. Please do not uh, install anything. So that is one instance. That is a false positive
Okay.
somehow. And uh, then I realized that, okay, I should have to be informed about it. My manager was informed, but he was on leave. So that is why he couldn't pass that message to me. And another incident happened with not with my organization or anyone of my organization with whom we work with, but with one of my colleague who
Okay.
started their own venture, something like e-agro products they are selling. So what happened with them? They have one S3 bucket, that is a storage solution provided by AWS.
Yeah.
And they have kept their JavaScript, CSS files, images, along with product invoices and everything, and they kept that bucket open.
Okay.
Now some threat actor came to that bucket, deleted everything, deleted the bucket also,
Hmm.
because every API calls are open on that. It's asterisk, wildcard entry. You can do
Okay.
anything. So he ended up losing his bucket, and then he called me and then told me that, okay, XYZ things happened. Now in cloud, specifically about AWS, when you encounter anything, any incident, you first look into CloudTrail, because that is something which logs all the API calls you have uh, performed inside your AWS environment, whether it is from the CLI or GUI. If you clicked any services, it will be logged into CloudTrail.
Okay.
So I investigated the entire CloudTrail, and then I identified that there are no API calls which have deleted that bucket. Then I started looking for, looks like this bucket has been deleted from the web request.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, objects are deleted, not entirely bucket, I believe. So I started looking for S3 bucket where the server logs are placed.
Mm-hmm.
So I started exploring it, and then I identified few of the uh, suspicious API calls where someone is trying to make a delete request to that bucket objects, and they have deleted everything. Then I suggested them to get this data back from the versioning. So luckily they have implemented the S3 bucket versioning. So they are
Okay.
able to recover it. And then I have set a strong bucket policy for them. And this is how I have responded to that incident.
Sounds like
And it
so.
was crazy. And it took me almost 5 to 6 hours to identify the root cause, because
Yeah.
I was looking for the CloudTrail. I believe that some access keys or some access has been compromised, and they have deleted this bucket. But I got no logs. So that is why I need to dig into other stuffs.
So that's a very interesting story. And I actually, we're, by the way, so we're moving on to the last section of the podcast. I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
So, one question is exactly about the thing that happened, right? For
Yeah.
example, the experience that you had, you were able to share this experience to me, to all the viewers through this podcast, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Given your experience delivering impactful talks at various conferences, do you believe that attending conferences and listening to these talks can be beneficial for one's career, especially for students?
Okay. So those students who can afford, they should go. Those who can't afford, wait for the right time when the other talks and everything got public. Go to their websites and read about it.
All right.
Because usually what happens, if I as a speaker goes to any conference, I'll present all those things over there, and then I'll make things public.
Mhm.
So even though if you are not able to attend that conference, you'll be still be able to get the slides and content over there. Like recent days, I have delivered one of my workshops at DefCon. Those who are not able to uh, join that
I
just
saw your
because of
post.
the,
I
yeah,
saw.
so you can still see the content.
Yeah.
And if you want to make connections, go to the conferences. They are good for making connections. I would recommend, if you can afford it,
All right.
if you get the vouchers.
Okay. So if majority of,
Other, hmm,
sorry, so please continue.
yeah, and don't get very much crazy about the conferences.
Okay.
Wait for the right time. one day, if you'll join any organization itself will sponsor you. Not only for going to the conferences, but even sponsor your entire trip along with the workshops cost also.
Okay.
So wait for the right time.
So there are a lot of conferences these days, especially in the Delhi NCR, and I'm pretty sure all over India now, that are comparatively, oh, not comparatively, but that are free for students. You just have to register. So for
Yeah.
those as well, you believe that in that particular case, if the student doesn't have to pay anything, he just have to register. He or she just have to register, and if they can commute, they can travel, and if they have the time, should they go for it because of the connection and learning new stuff, as you said?
We Indians are fond of free things. You
Yeah.
should definitely go for it.
All right. So, all right, sir.
You'll not lose anything, but
Yeah.
definitely you will learn more of the things.
All right. Perfect. So, and I've been following your journey for a long while now. So are you planning to teach students in cybersecurity professional in the future? This is the question that I'm just asking, just big out of curiosity.
I'm accidentally into corporate. I love
Okay.
teaching. I wanted to be a professor,
Okay.
but somehow I couldn't make it. So, answer to your question, I love teaching.
Yeah.
That is my passion. I'm always open for it. Just I'm one message away from you. Just drop a message on LinkedIn, and I'll teach you if I
Perfect.
have time.
Yeah, of course, sir. All right, so let's conclude this podcast with one final question. I love to ask the guest this question. The last question is that if you could leave your followers with one key takeaway or mantra, I should say, about cloud security, what would it be? Or so let's not even talk about cloud security. Let's talk about cyber security in general. If there's one tip that you followed that really helped you and you would like to tell your followers, what would that be, sir?
So be confident. What you do, don't be overconfident.
All right.
We
Perfect.
security guys generally uh, fall into the trap of overconfidence. We hack our own mobile phone by installing an application, and
Yeah.
then we think that we are a hacker. It
Yeah.
is not true. That application is doing it, how that application has been created, what all stuffs are being used. You should be aware of that. So that is why be confident about what you are doing, but don't fall in the overconfidence trap.
All right.
That
So,
is a thumb rule or a success mantra or whatever you call it. But
okay.
that is something that I believe every student must follow this.
Perfect. So thank you so much for joining and sharing your wonderful insights about cloud security, cyber security, and your incidents as well. I'm sure everyone has learned a lot about cloud security today, and some may have even found all the solutions they were looking for right here in this podcast. So, do you want to tell our viewers about something, maybe a cool project or a talk that you're going to be part of?
Yes,
All right.
let me think of it, what I can
Sure.
suggest. Okay, so when you started learning cloud, so so cloud is more of drag and drop, click and create kind of thing. You should always look for the solution which can automate these steps, right? So if I'll give me my example. So when I was in my first job, so I got assigned to a project where I need to identify all the orphan resources. When I
Mhm.
say orphan resources, it is like those resources which are not associated with other resources, but they are left behind and their parent resources has been deleted. How
Mhm.
will you identify it? Right. So I have an option that I can log into the portal, look for every particular resources, and then identify that okay, is there any association created for it or not? That is
Mhm.
the one easiest solution for it.
Yeah.
But that will take long time. So what you can do, you can try to automate it. A
Yeah.
simple Python script. You don't require to be a pro programmer. Right now, we have ChatGPT. Those days we don't have. I used to go in the documentation, learn about the AWS CLI commands, and then automate it with the Bash script.
Mhm.
Right now, you have a flexibility to use ChatGPT and all. And don't think that you don't know programming and you are making it with ChatGPT, so it is not valuable. It is
Mhm.
still valuable. Those who have created using the ChatGPT or maybe other GPT platforms, it is not bad. It is good because you are getting your work done. What else you need,
Yeah.
right? So if I need let's suppose a cup of water or maybe a glass of water, I can purchase it for, let's suppose, 100 rupees, maybe 20 rupees, 10 rupees, or I can dig a well and then carry out water from that particular well, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, my goal is to get the water, right?
Yes.
So if my work is done using ChatGPT or maybe the Stack Overflow or any other sources, I need to do that. It is solving a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So go for it. Do the automations. But if I'll give you that, okay, do this particular project, all the viewers will start doing that single project, and that will be not valuable because there are multiple solutions for it. So create your own solutions for every particular problem. So that is something you can try. So you can automate it using the chat GPT if you don't know the programming.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's perfect, sir. Again, thank you so much, sir, for joining in. We really appreciate you taking out time for us, and we really enjoy this insightful session. I certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure all our viewers learned as well. Learned a lot of things as well. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back very soon with a more exciting podcast. Be sure to stay connected and follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn for latest updates. As I said, I've been your host, Karthik Verma from Besides Noida. This is Besides Weekly, and we are always beside you. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.